All right, let's talk about something that hits close to home for so many families: attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. We're going to go on a little journey today, from that feeling of chaos it can sometimes bring to a place of real clarity and understanding. So let's dive in. Wow. This quote, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? That feeling of just being completely exhausted and frustrated. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, then you are definitely in the right place. Because the very first step to dealing with that feeling is to understand what's really going on behind it. So, where do we even begin? Well, let's start by giving this challenge a name. Let's get a really clear, no-nonsense understanding of what ADHD actually is. Okay, so the key phrase to lock onto in this definition is developmental disorder. That's super important because it tells us this isn't just a kid choosing to be difficult. It's about how their brain is wired, and that wiring affects everything: their behavior, their focus, and how they learn. And get this, it's way more common than you might think. We're talking about roughly 1 in every 20 kids. So if this is your world, just know you are so far from being alone in this. Now, here's something that might surprise you. When you look at the numbers, ADHD is diagnosed about 6 times more often in boys than in girls. 6 times! A big reason for this is probably how the symptoms show up. Hyperactivity in boys can be really obvious, while the inattentive side, which might be more common in girls, can sometimes fly under the radar. So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, it pretty much boils down to 3 core things. First, you've got inattention. That's the struggle to focus or forgetting instructions you just gave them. Then there's overactivity or hyperactivity. That's the child who just can't seem to stay still. And third, impulsiveness, acting before thinking, blurting things out, or just being a bit accident-prone. And, it doesn't stop with those main 3. There's often this whole cluster of other challenges that can tag along. Things like moodiness, being disorganized, maybe some social awkwardness, and a short-term memory that just doesn't want to cooperate. It really shows you how wide-ranging the effects can be. Okay, so we've kind of covered the what. Now let's dig into the why and the how. Because understanding where ADHD comes from and how it's diagnosed, that's where we really start to bust some myths and get rid of the stigma. And this is so, so important to hear. The honest truth is, we don't know the exact cause, but the evidence points very strongly to genetics. It tends to run in families. Let me just say that again. This is not about bad parenting. It's not something you did or didn't do. And we have to get this straight. Having ADHD has absolutely nothing to do with how smart a child is or their character. In fact, some of the most brilliant, creative, and successful people in the world have ADHD. So how do you know for sure? Well, a proper diagnosis isn't based on a kid having an off day or being a little impulsive now and then. That's just being a kid, right? A professional is looking for a consistent pattern of these behaviors, and they need to see it happening in different places, like at home and at school. Okay, so with all that in mind, let's get to the part you've probably been waiting for. What can you actually do? It's time to open up the toolkit and look at some practical, positive strategies that can help your child really thrive. The name of the game here is structure and positivity. Things like consistent routines and simple, clear rules, they're like a calming balm for a brain that's always buzzing. Praising them when they do something positive is huge for their self-esteem. And honestly, it's about picking your battles. Have clear consequences for the big stuff, but try to let the little things go. And it's just as important to know what not to do. Those old-fashioned, punitive methods, they just don't work, period. And why is that? Well, like we've already said, the difficult behavior isn't intentional. It's a symptom of the disorder, not a kid trying to be malicious. Now, let's be real for a second. This journey isn't just about the child, is it? It takes a toll on the entire family. So our toolkit needs to have strategies for everyone. Rule number 1, you cannot do this alone. It is all about building your support team. That means getting on the same page with your partner, teaming up with your child's teachers, and maybe even finding a support group with other parents who just get it. And please, don't forget this last one. Take frequent breaks. You have to recharge your own batteries to be there for them. All right, to wrap things up, let's tackle a few of those big picture questions that are probably floating around in your head as you think about the future. First up, the big one. Why about medication? And the short answer is yes. There are very effective medications out there.
And for many, they can be a really helpful part of the plan for years. But of course, that's always a conversation to have with a doctor to figure out the best path for your specific child.
Okay, next question. Can you fix this with a special diet? You know, while a healthy, balanced diet is great for any kid, the science just isn't there to prove that these special exclusion diets, like cutting out all sugar or food dyes, make a significant difference for ADHD. And finally, the one that I think is on every parent's heart: will they grow out of it? And this one's tough, but the realistic answer is that as a rule, no, they don't. Now, the symptoms can definitely improve and people learn amazing coping strategies, but for more than half of kids with ADHD, some aspect of the disorder will be with them into their adult lives. So you can see this is a marathon, not a sprint. But look how far we've come, from that feeling of chaos to the clarity of having a name, an idea of the cause, and a whole toolkit of strategies. This understanding, it's the most powerful first step you can take. So the only question left is, what's your next step going to be?